Hello all, I hope you're all doing well. We're continuing with our weekly portion review, and this week we are in the portion of Re'eh, which means lirot in Hebrew to see. So again, Moses is continuing talking to the Israelites, and famously he gives them the choice between the blessings and the curses that will be bestowed upon them depending on how they behave. And he also gives them specific laws with regards to the centralized place of worship, which eventually will turn into the temple. We are warned against following other gods and false prophets. There's the laws of kashrut, the dietary restrictions, tithing, the sabbatical year, and other things as well, even the festivals. So this is the general focus of the portion. Today, I'd like us to focus on the concept of the prophet, the false prophet, really, and prophecy itself. And the false prophet is also gives an important message, and he ends up being a messenger of God. In what way? So we see in Deuteronomy 13:4, we're told, "For the Lord your God is testing you to know whether you love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul." Right. So Rabbi Cook famously said that uh, these other prophets, these false prophets that are founders from branch religions, which are religions that emerged from Judaism, it's not impossible that miracles are actually performed by them, by these false prophets, and the God actually helps them in order to correct the this part of humanity, right? And this alludes also to what eventually Maimonides also sees Christianity and Islam as path makers. However, for us, for the Jews, they're just completely invalid. And when in that regard, when it's talking to us, it says, "For the Lord your God is testing you," you specifically, the Israelites. That doesn't mean that the message or the frequency that these false prophets are broadcasting on are irrelevant for the rest of the world and the nations, but they're irrelevant and invalid for the Israelite, for the Jew, and that's why he's testing us. However, while we still yearn for the return of prophecy, we do find in our own teachings by the sages expressions like prophecy was given to fools, or a wise person is preferable to a prophet. Now, we, of course, should not forget that one must read Talmudic discussion within the context. And in our case, if you read a little deeper, you see that this case actually states three things. And the rabbis come and say, "From the day the temple was destroyed, prophecy was taken from the prophets and given to the sages." Rabbi Yochanan says it was given to fools and children. This is in the tractate of Baba Basra. Now, if we read this carefully, we notice that this actually teaches us that prophecy originally connected these three elements, right? So to be a prophet, you need to be wise. You have to have a touch of foolishness and a bit of childlike innocence as well. Now, if you don't maintain that innocence, which is opposed to childishness, right? We don't want that, acting immature. And there's an openness of the fool, right, that he possesses in some extent. And obviously, he needs primarily also wisdom, right? Otherwise, he can't be a prophet. Now, in the time of the Great Assembly, the Knesset Hagdolah, prophecy actually ceased in Israel, right? And the entire treasury of the prophetic experience becomes really a reservoir of wisdom. Now, the prophets at that time went to, or the students of the prophets went to what we say, according to the prophets, called gather lights, lelaket orot, or raising sparks. So they acted and learned through experience ultimately. The prophet didn't turn to the intellect, but to the divine revelations in the world, and that's how he interacted with the world. And in that way, in the test of reality, the prophets actually failed because at the end of the day, their words were not practical enough for the people. Right? These were lofty ideas that couldn't be brought down to the ground. And the sages, on the other hand, could arrange life not based on grand ideas, but on precise details that help us actually ensure society, and we make sure that we don't fall into crime, wickedness, robbery, and violence. And that's why we have obviously all this halachic codex, this halacha in Judaism. However, uh, the way does not actually elevate people to the proper level that prophecy does, right? So it's not necessarily as inspiring as the prophet. It's more practical. And when we say that a wise person is preferable than a prophet, we need to notice that it doesn't mean that he's better than the prophet, rather that he's only preferable. Meaning the prophet is more concerned with general ideas or the ideals themselves. And a wise person really focuses on the particular, right? More of the action. And we ultimately see in this being fulfilled, as we see in Psalms, kindness, which is the general idea, and truth, which is the particular idea, they meet, right? This is in Psalms 85:11. And only through the synthesis between prophecy and wisdom is what we need to actually aspire for our next generation. That's what we want to return to. So, in that sense, Judaism is really the only religion that demands the return of prophecy, right? According to our Muslim brothers in Islam, prophecy really ended, and according to them, no prophet after Muhammad is going to come, right? And that's why Muhammad is also called the seal of the prophets. And according to Christianity, although there was never actually an official declaration that this is the end of prophecy, the idea of the divine logos, right, the word becoming flesh, and had an actually profound theological implication on how Christianity come to see prophecy, right, with their idea of the incarnation of the word through their prophet or through their Messiah. The need of ongoing prophetic revelation was really, as far as they're concerned, was seen as fulfilled. Now, in contrast, in Judaism, we never really despaired from renewing the prophetic culture. And after really 2,000 years of the absence of prophecy, we really still await its renewal. And we expect that it will come at a much higher level than before, like we just said, and that it will synthesize between the wisdom that we had and the wisdom that developed in the meantime. And the expectation, in a certain sense, is for the renewal of prophecy to be really an integral part of the Hebrew identity or the Hebrews. And we ultimately are the people of God. And God spoke to us from the beginning, and through us, He speaks to the entire world. And we can't really live a true, authentic life without speech being present in our reality. And we need to make sure that constantly, and I know I mentioned this often, that we're listening, we're hearing out to hear His words, to see where these revelatory sparks can be found and ultimately cultivated into the return of revelation and prophecy in our times. Shabbat Shalom.